Hey, all, today we're going to talk about some segments or lines that are associated with triangles. So one of those segments is an altitude, and an altitude is a segment that begins at one vertex. So this segment right here in the middle, I'm going over in red, that's the altitude. It starts at this vertex over here, and it goes across the triangle, just like we've been talking about, to the opposite side, and it's perpendicular to the opposite side. Remember, that's what this box means. It means it's a 90-degree angle. So basically, when we have an altitude, I have a segment that forms a 90-degree angle with the side opposite of the vertex. So we know that this angle here that I've labeled is 90, and we also know that this angle that's supplementary to it is 90 degrees. Another segment or line, perpendicular bisector can be a segment or a line. In this case, I drew it as a line. It's also perpendicular to a side of a triangle, and it's perpendicular in a way that it goes through the midpoint of one of the sides. So the place where this line, this perpendicular bisector, is intersecting a side is the midpoint of the side. So perpendicular means we have a right angle. Sorry about that interruption. And it also means that we have two congruent segments formed from this side. So this side is bisected, cut in half, and it's done so with a line that's perpendicular to it. So there's a couple pieces of information we get there. So here's an example of how we can apply this information. If I know that DE, so segment DE, so from here to here, is what I'm talking about, is a perpendicular bisector of AC, this side, AC, so that means it makes a right angle and two congruent segments. Remember, that's what it means when we have a perpendicular bisector. We want to find the length of EC. So we can set up an equation of these two segments being equal to each other, because we know E is the midpoint of AC, so these two segments are equal. We can solve for X. We can get X to be 7. Now we want to find the length of EC, so we'll plug that back in here. And of course, EC and AE should be the same. So if you accidentally plug it into the other one, you'll get the same answer. And we're going to get that the length of EC is 40. So that means the length of AE is also 40, and it means that AC is 80. This might be a little hard to see here. This is an X plus 7, 2X minus 15. Here we have an altitude, so we know that AD is perpendicular to BC. That's what happens when we have an altitude, so we have 90-degree angles. If we want to find the value of X, well, this angle here is labeled 4X minus 6. That's a right angle, so 4X minus 6 should be equal to 90. We'll add 6 to both sides and divide both sides by 4. Get that X is 24. So it's important to know that these angles are both 90. In this situation, we haven't discussed what would happen here, but we could find these side lengths now that we know X. So just for the heck of it, we'll plug in 24 for X. and get that this side is 31. And we'll get that this side is 48 minus 15, which is 33. So because we have an altitude, it doesn't mean we necessarily have two equal segments on this side, even though it looks like it. So just be careful there. These are not equal. Go ahead and pause the video here. Notice that ik is an altitude, and we want you to find the value of x. So similar to one of the problems we had before, since ik is an altitude, we know we have a right angle right there, which is 90 degrees. We're also told that it's 3x plus 3 degrees, so we can set up an equation and we can solve for x. And we can get that x is 29. Again, be careful. We have some extra information. Perhaps in a different problem, we'll look for how long those segments are. So for example, we could plug in 29 for x and get that the length of kh is 37, or we can get that the length of jk is 20. And remember that looks can be deceiving. Certainly it looks like jk is longer than hk, but if we solve for x correctly, we can see that that's not true in the context of this problem. So go ahead and use the information from this lesson and answer these two questions. We'll discuss them in class.